put more money in people's pockets.
I think a lot of people will think, Prime Minister, you're not really on their side.
Order.
I bet you were all waiting with bated breath to hear Sunak's compassionate reply, telling everyone he gets it, he's gripping it, and he's going to ride in and save the day for everyone. All hail Rishi Sunak. But hello there, and I do hope you're all well. And don't worry, there's only a couple more of these Rishi Sunak liaison committee meetings where he's about as much use as a find a lift. Now here you'll see the chair of the Levelling Up Housing and Communities Committee, Clive Betts, basically exposing our Prime Minister for being wholly inadequate and out of his depth and clearly talking out of his backside.
Yeah. Good afternoon, Prime Minister. I'm sure we can all agree that there's a real problem in this country, both the rising housing costs and a shortage of housing, which affects the whole country, but some families in particular. And therefore, it is important that the government achieves its target of building 300,000 new homes a year. I presume that is still the government's target. But at the end of the year, you consulted on, through planning policy, of abolishing local housing targets that councils have to meet. So when you get back to the office and get out your spreadsheets and you look at the 300,000 target at the bottom, which the nation has to hit, how can that be done if the government's going to give up its influence over the individual targets in each local area that are supposed to add up to that 300,000?
Well, what I would say is we had a commitment to deliver 1 million homes over the Parliament, which we're continuing to make progress towards. I think in the last year that we have numbers for, ending 2022, something like 230,000 additional homes were delivered, which in and itself was the third highest yearly rate, I think, in the last 3 decades. And indeed, if you look at the last few years, all of them have been in some of the highest rates we've seen for decades. I think that shows that the government's policies are delivering, and we're making progress to our overall ambition of 1 million homes over the Parliament. And with regard to the planning reforms, I think it's important that the planning system, also has the confidence of local communities. And planning targets remain there, but they're a starting point as opposed to something that's being imposed on communities without reference
but how is
to the
government going to achieve the 300,000, Prime Minister, if you're losing control of the individual figures that add up to it? I mean, Lichfield's, the planning consultancy, have said that this planning policy in consultation is going to reduce house building to 150,000 a year, half the government's target. Already this year, housing starts have fallen by 12% from a figure that was well below the 300,000 to begin with. That's not success, is it?
Well, I think what is success is, as I said, we've delivered some of the highest years of new housing additions in 3 decades over the last few years. So I think that shows the approach is working. And what we are doing as well is ensuring that we support local communities to bring housing on stream, particularly on brownfield land, where we're investing taxpayer funds to help remediate land and unlock.
Are you effectively
thousands
giving
of
local communities a veto then over achieving the 300,000?
No, it's as I said, what we're doing is we are reforming how the planning system works so that we strengthen the neighbourhood plans, which actually, particularly neighbourhood plans, have shown that they can deliver the housing that people need in their local areas, but they do so in a way that has the consent of the community, which is important. And it means that the character of local areas and the particular circumstances in each local area, whether it's greenbelt or something else, are taken into account in assessing what is a reasonable amount of housing to
deliver. Sure, how that's going to get us to 70,000 more homes when you're taking away the ability to influence targets. Can I just go on to one other point, Prime Minister? Many people, because they can't afford a home, there's no social housing to rent, end up in the private rented sector, sometimes through choice, often because that's the only place for them to go. Since 2020, the local housing allowance, which helps the poorest families pay for the rent in the private rented sector, has been frozen. Yet at the same time, rents in the private rented sector have risen by 25%. There's now only 1 in 20 homes that are covered by the local housing allowance. How is it fair for government policy to impact so severely on the poorest families who no longer can pay for the rent of most homes in the private rented sector with the allowances that are available to them?
So, look, I can't remember precisely, but I think we increased the local housing allowance a couple of years ago by a very significant amount.
Frozen since 2020,
yeah, but it frozen at a level that was significantly higher than it was before, whereas about a £600 uplift to, from memory, about 1.5 million
Doesn't
households.
help families with a 25% rent increase they can't pay for.
So, and actually there's the discretionary housing payments of a few £100 million that are there to support people as well, as on top of housing benefit. And the Affordable Homes Programme has delivered thousands of new affordable homes for rent, and will continue to do so as well.
But affordable homes are 80% of market rents, Prime Minister. They're not affordable to most people, are they, on the lowest incomes?
I look at it, it's a question of how you're targeting that support, but as I said, the Affordable Homes Programme, I think it's over £11 billion over its period. It's significantly higher than the one that it replaced. It's supporting thousands of new affordable homes for rent, together with housing benefit, discretionary housing payments. All that support is there.
But even public service workers, nurses, policemen, others can't afford affordable rents in London, can they? 80% of market rents are just not within the remit of many public service workers struggling on their current levels of pay.
Yes, which is why on the other side we've taken huge steps to help people with their energy bills, which is saving them around £1,500 over the past few months, raising the national living wage by record levels to put more money in their pockets, raising the threshold at which people start paying national insurance. All of those things also put more money in people's pockets.
I think a lot of people will think, Prime Minister, you're not really on their side.
Well, I think if you actually look at you can look at the case studies of families in different circumstances, and what you'll see is, because of the support we've put in place, it is actually disproportionately benefiting the most vulnerable families. Now, that's happening in lots of different ways, whether it's support with energy bills, the cost of living payments that are worth £900 that are going to several million of the most vulnerable households in our society this year, whether it's a national living wage increase or the tax changes. All of those add up to quite meaningful support for families, deliberately targeted on the most vulnerable families.
And when I watched this, and it's a few of these conversations with our Prime Minister that he had with these MPs, but it stuck out more for me with Clive Betts, was that when these people were talking about those in their constituency who were having this problem that was affecting them really badly, Rishi Sunak just sounded so disconnected, didn't he? It was like listening to a person explain how he got out of a difficult problem he'd never ever experienced or ever been in. Do you know what I mean? Now, I'm in a privileged position. I'm very lucky. I don't have to worry about trying to keep a roof over our heads, as my home is already bought and paid for. But I can imagine the pressure that those are either paying for a mortgage or renting are having to deal with. I can imagine the pressure is immense. All you got from this guy is, look at all these wonderful things we're doing for you all, and you should be incredibly grateful, regardless if it's nowhere near good enough and more needs to be done. Now, when Clive Betts said that people will think that you're not on their side, he just went over his head, didn't he? He just thought, yeah, whatever, I'll just carry on saying the same old nonsense, the same old spiel, in a desperate hope that I know I'm talking utter rot again, but hopefully I'll sound like I know what I'm doing, and I'll have a cohesive plan that makes sense. When we all know he hasn't really. He's just waffled on utter nonsense just to try and get out of us answering really, really tough questions. But anyway, what do you guys think? Let me know down below, and I shall bid you farewell and take care, my friends.